Commercial Wednesdays. This one's really exciting to me because now we got the election behind us. So let's get on with business. We know now with interest rates, it's not going to go immediately dropping with 50 basis points, but we know slowly it's going to start going down, whether it's over the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but we do know the rates are going down. But now this is the biggest thing. The silver tsunami, don't miss it. It is the largest transfer of wealth ever from the baby boomers who's been building it up. And I would just say sometimes holding on. I know on the residential side, they're all looking, but a lot of times they're not selling their homes. They're holding it on because of the low interest rates. They would rather rent it out. But when you're looking at businesses, you cannot just hold on to the business. When grandpa or grandma or dad or mom does not want it, a lot of times these kids are professionals and they do not want their business. And we were just talking behind the scenes. Sometimes corporate America is not always the safety. Sometimes running your own business, especially with it when it was in the family being built up, you should hold on to it. But sometimes they just don't want it. They just want to cash out and then just take the proceeds and invest and go on their ways, especially if they have a large family. So we brought a good amount of experts with Earl Kemper, with Nick, and also, and Jeff. There you go, Jeff. And all of us together to talk only about business brokerage, M&A, the finance, and this is a secret sauce. So for those that showed up, distressed assets. And I'll just say during the last cycle, I had many opportunities to buy restaurants, hotels, car washes, you name it. They were out there. So we'll kind of get into this by introducing our speakers and our panelists so we can kind of share their background. And I would say this too. If you don't want to be an expert, because many of these people here are as our panelists, they're experts. They've been doing this for decades and decades to learn their craft. If you don't want to spend that much time, definitely get their contacts, plug in, join us on the backstage pass so you know and how to get a hold of them so you can work with experts and people that are working on business brokerage or the finance, because everyone has clients that usually know somebody that owns a business. But Earl, I'll start with you, Nick. As you were coined the godfather of business brokerage and seeing how this whole changing of evolution. I don't even think back then there was a business brokerage. I think you kind of invented it and made it. If you don't mind sharing your background, Nick.
Sure, absolutely. I can liken my first deal. I'll describe that real quick, and I'll go into my full background. The first deal, and I've been doing this for 43 years now. Strictly business brokerage. I don't sell houses. I don't lease warehouse space. I do business brokerage, existing businesses, and franchise sales, etc. So anyway, my first deal, very first deal, 43 years ago, I listed and sold a dry cleaning drop store, not a dry cleaning plant, the drop store only. And my minimum commission on my contract was $5,000 back then, and I sold it. My commission was supposed to be $4,000, but my minimum commission kicked in at $5,000. Fast forward 43 years later, Earl and I are selling businesses where the commissions are $2 and $3 and $500,000. The commission, not the selling prices. Those are the commissions today. And imagine if someone in your audience had made that referral to Earl and I, and we turned around and sold it. I mean, 20% of 500,000, 800,000, 700, not bad, not bad. In most cases, realtors are selling their houses and whatever. They don't even make that with the one commission referral from us. They don't make that in the entire year. And all we are looking for is a referral, and we'll take it over from there. We'll do the heavy lifting. Anyway, real quick, I don't want to take up everybody's time, so real quick. In 1971, I was a junior in college, and I'm going to shorten my story. I know right now my partner Earl is cringing. Nick's going to get into one of his half-hour diatribes. But anyway, I was a junior in college in 1971. I started a children's summer day camp by leasing a section of a state park just outside of my hometown, Buffalo, New York. That first year, I filled the camp up all summer long, 350 kids in camp all summer, made a ton of money as a junior in college. My senior year, I started to franchise that company. Over the next 9 years, I had sold 98 children's summer camp franchises by the time January of 81 rolled around. So for 10 years, I did the children's summer camp franchises, sold that off in January of 81. In the middle of that year, still was looking for something to do with the rest of my life, I read an article about the field of business brokerage in Entrepreneur Magazine. And that really piqued my interest in the field. And you're right, back then, the 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 field of business brokers really kind of started out west in California, and like a lot of franchise concepts, even today, they start out west and they work their way back east. Well, here I'm back east. I'm in Buffalo, New York. That's my hometown. Um, and so by the time I started my business brokerage, December of '81, I was a rarity on the East Coast, and frankly had no intentions of expanding my company like I had done with the children's camps. But bottom line is, uh, I was approached by outside people that wanted to be business brokers and they wanted me to mentor them and so on, which I did one at a time, two at a time. By the time the mid 1990s came around, I had about, I think at that, about, I'll round it off, about 20 offices under my belt, mentoring. And the height of our existence is 85 offices coast to coast in 13 foreign markets. We're general business brokers, so we do mom and pop Main Street businesses all the way on up through high end M&A. Largest business I ever sold was a $293 million business, and we did that for a flat fee versus a percentage of the selling price. So that's my background, basically 43 years of purely being a business broker and mentoring others to be business brokers.
Thank you, Nick. And I know they quoted or coined you as Godfather of Business Brokerage. What, in Entrepreneur Magazine? One of the magazines.
Yeah. There was another magazine out of California that gave me the moniker of the America's foremost business broker.
There you go.
Was their quote.
Congratulations, Earl. And on your mission and journey, you actually found Nick, partnered up. But I know you were a coach. You worked on so much larger M&A deals. I mean, share a little about that. I know you worked on smaller deals. They're great, but sometimes you go elephant hunting with your experience. If you don't mind sharing.
Sure. So, going back to the 80s, I started an insurance agency and grew it to about 700 agents, sold that. Grew a financial advisory firm in the 90s to back in the 90s when 600 million was a lot of money. Sold that, and I've been business coaching for nearly 40 years throughout all of that. We've coached a little over 1,800 businesses. Our typical business will double in revenue in 3 years or less and increase profits 4 to 6 times. So in 2014, I said, I've done a lot of deals. I'll charge 15 grand, to help somebody sell a business, but I never was doing business brokerage. And so I ran into this deal that I was interacting with a business broker. And I said, what's your commission going to be on this? And he said, well, it's going to be about $320,000. I said, crap, I should make that money. I should not be getting $15,000. So I contacted Nick. Nick and I got together in 2014. And as we interacted together, I learned, what business brokerage really was, how it worked. I had a lot of businesses that were ready to exit. So I said, this is perfect. I will just serve as their business broker. And, some of the deals, $42 million deals, $17 million deal, $24 million deals. And I also found that some of them would be willing to allow me to take an ownership position instead of a commission. So I said, okay, well, for the next however many deals I can do that, I'm going to look for that. And so we build it that way. But coaching businesses, we have coaches all over the world. Between Nick and I, we have a little over 100 business brokers throughout the U.S. and I think 18 different locations internationally. So, I mean, we've got connections all over the place for that. And we've seen a lot. It helps a lot when you've seen a lot. I've seen businesses go through challenging times. 2007, 2008, we brought on 41 businesses. 36 of them doubled in about 24 months. 5 of them failed. And the reason 5 of them failed, they wouldn't do more marketing, more training. They wouldn't do more development, hiring. They would just say, man, we're hurting. And they hold on with their dear life and they died. And, their mindset was scarcity, not abundance. One of the things I loved most about Nick is he has an abundance mentality. Between the two of us, we're all about abundance. So what we do is we identify organizations that are doing really well in various areas of the business. We develop referral partners in that regard, and we bring things to them, they bring things to us. And we're willing to pay healthy. I'll tell just one story and then I'll be done. So working with a dental organization, they were doing about 4 million of revenue, and he wanted to grow. He thought 10 to 15%. I said, hey, if you could double your business in 3 years or less, would you want to go after it? He said, well, I'm skeptical, but I'll go after it. 18 months later, we were at $8.8 million. Then for the next 5 years, we focused our attention on acquiring commercial property for dentists and practices. And we bought 5 of them. We grew the overall organization to 36 million. We sold it for 42. And along the way, we did 5 transactions commercially and 5 businesses that were sold. So we were introduced to that client by a CPA. As Nick said, we pay a 20% referral fee, so we paid 20%. He got paid 820. I got paid 4.1 million. It was a great client. We have a lot of those kinds of stories, and the excitement about that is that real estate has been challenging. Residential real estate has been challenging. Commercial real estate has had a little more upside in some areas, but also challenging. What we offer is a way to fill that gap of income by introducing us to opportunities that you might have with business owners, and develop a possibility of either coaching relationship, a franchise development relationship, or even maybe help them sell their business. We also have a great list of buyers for a business. So if somebody's looking to sell, we are also serving as buyer broker for some of our clients. So that's our background in terms of Nick and I. And thank you for giving us the opportunity today, James, to share and to see what we can do to help some people.
Thank you, Earl. And that's the thing about building the list. Everyone, and this is what I liked when I was running my own company. I had to cooperate, and somebody said to me, well, Jim, do you want to buy my property management? My kids, one's a lawyer, one was a doctor, says they're not going to run it. So they said, would you run it? And they gave me a great deal, but this is even more exciting than commercial. I bought it at 1.5 times. Wow, with seller carryback, doing an earn out, as these terminology you'll know, I was paying them from the profits because I already had an existing property management, adding it to it. I got more efficiencies, right? Buying their book of business, as many people know. So just learning who you could talk to say, are you still going to run that restaurant? Are you still going to own that dry cleaner? Are you still going to own, whatever it is? Because you can see they're tired. Some of your clients that own the building, leasing the space, there's so many opportunities. Or, wow, this place is the best place to go. Have you ever thought about franchising or scaling, right? That is the conversations. And as the individual connecting to experts, you now are part of the team. Maybe you ask for equity. Maybe you just get a commission. There's so many avenues. And that's why I love, from the residential or luxury, you always have these type of clients. Commercial for sure, right? Especially if you're a leasing broker, you always, as a tenant rep, you always run around these kind of clients. So kind of working collaboratively, it allows you to capitalize on every one of these opportunities by bringing experts into the room. But I have to add, Jeff works at one of the largest business brokerage banks in the country, seen so much behind the scenes, underwriting, looking at it, and also a CE credit for business brokerage. I know you're running around teaching, training, where now you're mentoring, you're going to put a course. But Jeff, I don't want to take away your thunder, because being behind the scenes where everyone's kind of going to you, the bank, to find the financing through SBA and other ways. Kind of share your story, Jeff, in this industry.
Thanks for having me here, James, and great to meet you here, Earl and Nick. But yeah, I mean, what Earl and Nick do is fantastic. and they're going to work with a buyer to buy one of their businesses, and they're going to either bring a cashier's check at closing time, or they're going to get financing from some place, right? Other people's money, OPM, right? So those are somebody's buying it for cash, or they're going to use other people's money. What we're talking about today is financial institution money through a bank. So and thanks for pitching that, James. I have a training and education company called Federal Funding Corporation. I'm a state-approved instructor here in California, but the concepts I teach are nationwide. Financing businesses is the same in New York, same in Florida, same in California. So I have that side of it. But yeah, I mean, I've been on the brokerage side too. Back in 2000 until about 2008, when the whole thing collapsed, me and a partner had a loan brokerage business up in Las Vegas, Nevada, and that was the hotbed of activity, if you remember. And then it became, unfortunately, the hotbed of foreclosure activity. So I was right in the middle of that firestorm. 2008, the company that I was partnered with, we had a big line of credit with Bear Stearns, if you remember them, one of the largest investment firms in the world. Frankly, they collapsed. Our line of credit went away, and then I got on board with a bank called La Jolla Bank back in 2008. So I was always on the brokerage side, and then started working for a bank, and I've been on the bank side since, on the financing side of it. But it's really opened my eyes because, number one, with the right financing, you can really leverage a lot of opportunities out there. And we're talking about, on SBA financing, small business administration financing for a business acquisition, you can almost get 9-to-1 coverage, up to 9-to-1 coverage sometimes, which is 90% financing, 10% equity. We'll call it cash injection right now. So if you have a couple $100,000 laying around, instead of buying a $200,000 business, you could use that leverage, and all of a sudden you're buying a $2 million business. If you have $400,000 laying around, you can buy a $4 million business. So that power of leverage really works. Now, obviously, it has to work on the cash flow side of it. So we do a lot of work with the customers up front to make sure, once we get the seller's tax returns, that there's going to be plenty of money in there to pay the SBA loan payment. Maybe there's a seller note sometimes involved, as you know, Earl and Nick, those are part of the transactions. And then there's going to be an owner's salary, right? You can't buy these for free and say, well, no, I'm not going to take any money out. It doesn't work. So you have to have a salary in there to say, okay, here's a minimum I need to cover my family's needs, put some money in my pocket. So we look at all that up front to say, okay, here's the note payment on the loan. Here's the seller note, if there's one involved. Here's what you need to pull out of, to cover your family's needs. And we do this analysis and say, yep, that can work up front. And we do that for our customers up front, no charge, no obligation to say, yeah, this looks good, that can meet your needs. No, no, no. So sometimes it's just a matter of just kind of weeding through these things and finding the right one with our Earl and Nick that you have an interest in, whether it's a hardware store, a healthcare company, a pharmacy, senior housing, so many that we all work on. And then that once you find something that okay, yeah, great. I like working on automobiles. My granddad had a shop. I want to have an automotive care business, whatever it is, right? A Jiffy Lube. Once you find something that you can be involved with personally, because that's another thing involved with these, James, and both of you know this, is that transition period. You really have to find the right business that somebody can be involved with. They have some experience around, because if you don't have the right transition, and again, on the bank side, we have something called the special assets call, where if you end up in special assets like that, it's like me, you don't want to be on special assets. There's a problem with the loan. They're not making the payments. All this week, we have special assets calls this week. So most of the time it's from that transition. They don't know what to do. The seller backed off, and it's that transition risk. So if you can, I uploaded 2 guides, actually, everybody, on this call, so you can download these transition guides that'll help you in your due diligence. But working with the team, Earl, Nick, getting financing involved early on to make sure that cash flow work, you can get a deal done. Any thoughts around that, Earl or Nick?
Well, definitely. Whenever you're working with these deals, what you have to look at is not only what happens if the business sells, but what happens when it's bought. And what I mean by that is that company needs to be able to operate that business successfully, because a lot of deals that you do are going to be impacting that seller by what the buyer does in the future. And so you really got to be careful about that. And also when you're talking about all the different ways to get the money to that seller, you know, you're going to be financing it. So you're going to have a payment and you got to be able to make that payment and all of those different things. Now, what's interesting about any challenge, there's always an opportunity. I always think about these deals, and the challenge that might be there is that transition. The opportunity is what James alluded to, distressed asset purchases. There's an opportunity to buy that business by someone else, and an opportunity to buy it for less, and an opportunity to grow it. I mean, through our coaching, we'll take a business like that, we'll grow it, and then find another buyer, right? And so if you do end up in a situation where they haven't handled the approach to running the business well once they buy it, you automatically have a distressed asset. And you know, the real estate can be a problem because they can't fund it, because the business can't fund it. And so you got another distressed asset. And so in today's world, because of the things that happened in the last several years, we've seen a lot of issues with businesses because of inflation, because the cost of goods sold. We're seeing issues of people having to pay themselves less in salaries. We're seeing them not really understand business and grow business and pass it to their children that know less than they know. Although that's becoming less and less. I think less children are buying businesses than ever before. So the financial side of it is key. You got to get the right structure of a deal so that the buyer doesn't have trouble in the future. But even if you do, sometimes the buyers don't have the knowledge, they don't have the skill set, they don't have experience, they just had the money or the access to the money. That's my thought on that. Nick?
I'd like to just throw out a couple of statistics that I believe are pretty close to being the real numbers, just to show the audience the size of the market that's out there. I mean, I grew up in an all Italian neighborhood, you know, the Italian bakeries and so on, and those businesses were indeed passed down through the generations. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I sold two businesses. One, I'll mention the name, Nita Prune Construction Company. 100 years in the family. Finally, none of the kids wanted to be in the construction industry. They come to the broker to sell it for them. Gould's Florists, 3 retail stores in 3 different towns, the greenhouse operations, 100 years in the family. The daughter wanted to be a real estate agent, and the son wanted to be an auto mechanic. Wanted nothing to do with the florist business. They come to the broker. We sold the business for them. But the good news is those aren't the norms. The average term of ownership, it's said, in the United States is about 4.9 years. So about 5 years. You're going to have a 20% turnover of businesses. That's amazing to me, where 20% of businesses in your town or the people that you know are going to sell. Whether they sell it through you or another broker, it might as well be through you. So if you don't want to be a full-time broker, make the referrals to us. We're pros. We know what we're doing. It's 43 years, 45 years in the industry between Earl and I, and we don't fudge those numbers, by the way. Some people will say, well, our firm, you know, the principals in the company have been doing this for 80 years. Well, yeah, because they added Earl's number to my number and come up with 80. No, we have 43 and 45 years in the industry, hands-on, we're doing the deals. The other thing I'd like to mention is our industry is not like residential or even commercial, where in either of those fields, you all know, you guys are professionals, you know your industry, it's cyclical, okay? You have, you know, peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys. Business brokerage, very little wave there. It's not peaks and valleys. And why? Because good economy or a bad economy, people want to buy businesses for the same reasons, and people want to sell businesses for the exact same reasons. There's health issues. They're sick and tired of running that business. They want to move on to the next challenge. They want to retire, et cetera. There's a divorce going on or partnership problems. Same exact reasons. to buy or sell businesses, whether it's a good economy or a bad economy, and we're there to service those needs.
Nick,
And-
I'm glad you said that and what everyone said, because it is important, to streamline your income. Sometimes we always say with real estate, it's boom or bust, but business brokerage, actually, sometimes the best opportunity is when it's bad. Oh my gosh, this headache. As long as you underwrite and like what Jeff said, the finance, the numbers, and I would say a cheat is giving it to a SBA business broker to underwrite it for you. That's the cheat sheet, because they'll tell you the leverage and if the cash flow is good, and they'll be salivating if the deal is really good. They want to partner with you because it's a cash flow game, right? Maybe not so much an appreciation like in real estate, like your home, forced savings to live somewhere, commercial appreciation, but obviously you want cash flow to cover the debt service. Business brokerage is really a cash flow game, but you can learn to scale it. Once the cash flow is so big, you expand it. And that's why going into franchises or roll-ups, I mean, these are more advanced. Think about what investment banking does. Investment banking is just bringing the business to a public market. That is it. So everyone, think about it. If you want to go to be an investment banker, right? Yes. Learn the analysts, learn the numbers, learn the finance, learn the industry, and you could start from something small as a business brokerage to M&A, which is middle market, to small investment banking. And then, hey, if you can't do yourself, a lot of people can't. You go work with Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley and any of this. But this is where your way is. All these things are possible. So I just want to say for the people, how can they get involved? How can they learn to be involved in this tremendous industry? So Earl, I'll start with you on this. How can they get involved to plug into this industry?
Well, one of the things I did, and I make available, and we can send it to whoever is on this and others, James, is I put together 6 1-hour recordings on how to develop strategic relationships that can introduce you to businesses. And I think that's a good way to start getting involved in business situations for opportunities for businesses to either grow through coaching or be in a position to sell. The other part of it is you all have clients that have been in one way or another in a business setting. They own a business and they bought real estate residentially. So look at your list, find those business owners, and those are great opportunities to come back, and you may have an opportunity to serve. In regard to thinking about Jeff for a minute and the financing side, one of the things I think that's very important is many times even a cash buyer should not be a cash buyer. So I think one of the benefits of a person like Jeff is even if a guy has cash or a gal has cash to invest, they should look at the potential benefits of leverage. And so, understanding what your options are, even if you're a cash buyer, is very important. So I share that, Jeff, to say to you that I'm sure that's a big part of what you see as opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to 2 things, and there's plenty of people with that'll liquid out there, but I mean, in a business, cash is king. We all know that. I mean, even in your own personal budget, you have to have money, and I'm talking about cash you can just pull out and spend as you want to, not borrow money. But in a business, cash is king, so you don't want to use up all your money to buy the business, and then you're kind of asset rich and cash poor, because a business, it gives you money, but it also eats money every month. There's employee wages, there's rent, there's utilities. I mean, a restaurant, I mean, it's like you're paying 50 people, and then there's a little bit left over for the owner of a restaurant, knife sharpening, linen cleaning, whatever it is. I mean, it's amazing. But yeah, I mean, so you want to do that analysis of, okay, what do you need as far as cash? Maybe conserve some of this and then have a debt piece. And the debt we're talking about, right now that is really working is small business administration loans. And talking about, how to get involved with this business, James, is one easy one. So the training I do is called SBA Commercial Financing for Commercial and Business Opportunities. That's a CE class for real estate agents all throughout California, right? So they can take the class, get the 3 hours of CE credit is fine. It's an extra benefit. But the main thing that we're teaching in this class that I teach is how to take, if you're a residential agent, how do you make this change to get into business brokerage, or at least start talking about business to somebody? So every residential agent, if you have clients, you have 1003 applications, or you have a real estate application, and you ask them, what do you do for a living? I'm self-employed, right? So I would go back to that list of self-employed people and say, hey, have you heard about the new federal funding programs for businesses out there? Brand new program just came online. You can get working capital for your business. You can refinance debt. You can get money to buy your competitor, or buy another business, or buy your own building, right? So that's, that's an easy, by the way, have you heard about these new government programs just came online this year? And that's an easy way, because you don't have to figure out the business brokerage side. You don't have to worry about the numbers. All you're saying, have you heard about these funding programs? Great. Let me get you in touch with the right people, and they can walk you through this and give you the right direction.
One of the things we do also with people in that setting, Jeff, is we'll educate them on business opportunities. So, if you got the money, that's a great place to start, right? You got the money and the money sources. But the next step is to pick the right business to purchase if you're not already a business owner. And so those are other things that I think we can do together with you, Jeff, as an example. And James, I'm really glad we brought all of the parties together that are on this call, because I see a lot of synergy that way. And the more educated we can get real estate agents to be, and the opportunities that are around them with business owner clients, the better.
And that's the thing, just plugging in, connecting, because Jeff and I met a long time ago at CAB, where his company with Live Oak Bank was sponsoring. But those are like, there's different regionals. So if you're with NAR, there's some business brokerage, there's different ones in Florida. California has CAB, California Association of Business Broker, with their course. I know a friend of mine, she set up CBA, the business brokerage and commercial up in the Northwest. And there's just different pockets. But the great thing is there's different associations from that to M&A, what is M&A Source, which is a big one for middle market. There was IBBA. I know a lot of us have taken those courses, but it is not just studying it, getting the right mentor, plugging in, because like commercial, and it's even more complicated because there's a lot more pieces moving around, and there's other type of sales mechanisms where you don't want the liability once you pay it. And I'll just tell you, if you're not in it, you'll get tricked, because I remember how many people sold coupons, all cash. All of a sudden, the owner took it. He had to make good, or she had to make good on all these coupons for car washes or selling things. And it's funny, when they transferred the sales, they were just doing all the shenanigans, or not knowing a lease is coming due, that the lease is going to be 2 times more. And then that bites into your cash flow. Don't be caught on the wrong side, or a bulk sale where there's inventory and they steal all the inventory, right? So you got to go through experts that know this business. Otherwise, the worst is representing. You're going to end up in a lawsuit. I always say business brokerage, if you don't work with the right people, it is more litigious. It's easier. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it's a mom and pop not understanding it, working with somebody that's inexperienced. Buy this all cash, or right, not using leverage, not understanding it, not working with the right people, and you get yourself in big trouble. Watch out.
James, as an offshoot of what you just said, obviously, typically a business broker works with a seller, lists the business, and goes out and finds a buyer and gets paid a commission. But there's buyer-broker relationships, which Earl mentioned earlier. I believe that sometimes it's worth, especially if you're a first-time buyer or an inexperienced buyer, I think it's worth hiring a firm like Earl and I, for example, or Jeff, and be willing to pay their fee, even if the recommendation from us is don't do the deal. It's money well spent to get professional advice not to do that deal, because if you do the wrong deal, you're going to lose a lot of money.
Well, look, I mean, what you just mentioned there, Nick, is so important. And the bank speak is risk management, right? Risk reduction. Okay, I mean, you want to take a risk. Lending is risk, right? I mean, loans go bad, businesses go bad. But another point of using financing, especially if you're talking about small business administration, SBA financing. By the way, I mean that's a nationwide program. In Live Oak Bank, we can fund in all 50 states and the territories. So that if you want to prospect down in Puerto Rico for businesses, that they sell them down there too, and we can fund them down there. So all 50 states, you have a range from literally 100,000 all the way up to 5 million under the basic 7A program. That's called for business acquisitions. And then there's something called a combination loan called an SBA pari passu loan, just a shared lien position. So we could fund up to a $10 million purchase price with literally $1 million down, because we could do a $5 million SBA loan with a $4 million conventional term loan in combination, and then they're going to bring in 10 or 15% down, right? So
right.
That's a lot of territory, right? All 50 states, 100,000 up to 10 million. So that's a decent range for just small to mid-sized businesses.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing. That would be, just talk about financing. But the other thing, as far as having financing, put into place, even if it's 50% of the transaction or 90% or some percentage of it, you already have another 4 or 6 or 8 sets of eyes looking at this thing, saying this can work out. Is the inventory in place? Is everything right? Because you're going to meet the bank guidelines, the seller and the buyer. Then you have to meet the SBA guidelines. So there's a lot of checks and balances in that system to really protect your buyer or your customer from not I'll just say some of these fraudulent things that happen out there. So like I said, we don't know everything. There's a lot of experience. I only have 15 years experience. So what's that? 95 years of experience, right? Between the three of us, if you multiply it or do your addition. But like I said, when you have the financing, you're working with experts, it really can give the confidence at closing table that there's no buyer's remorse. And you don't want to have that with a customer. You want to have a happy customer. They're buying the business. Day one, the seller's in there transitioning. And, we've seen it happen so many times. Last year, we did 1.8 billion of SBA loans, which is a big, huge number. It's not even a joke number, but through that, a lot of happy customers. And I'll tell you what, I mean, and Earl and Nick have been on this side of it. 6 months, a year later, they're calling you up saying, "Thank you so much for getting me involved with this." It's a fantastic feeling.
Well, and that's one of the things, how you plug in, make that list. You don't have to be an expert, refer it. I would always say learn it. It's fun to learn, and then see where it is. And really with the economy and things that are bad right now, trying to be corporate, a lot of people are now trying to buy their own business, looking at something maybe related so they can actually plug in, buy it themselves, run it themselves. I've had friends, to make a family business, buy it for their spouse, and they ran it together while they're in real estate, right? To cash flow, to find something because there's better leverage. So I would say, Nick, with your experience, we know now if you're new, get some course, take some classes, find a good mentor. But being in the business so long, with 45 years, how else could you make money? Not just transacting, but what other avenues have you seen that you can make money in this great industry?
I've always been a proponent my entire life of taking full advantage of either the contacts or the experience that you've built up over the years. And when I first got into this business in '81, I was like everybody else. I was a business broker. I went out and I listed existing businesses for sale for 10% commissions. And a couple of years into it, I started looking at my practice and I said, wait a minute. I think we business brokers, you got to think outside the box. I hate to use that cliche, but it fits. Think outside the box. I've got buyers who come into my office, and maybe in my office in Buffalo, New York, I'd have 100, 125 listings. So, James, you come into my office, you're a buyer. I find out how much money you have available to put towards the purchase of a business. What types of businesses would you be interested in, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't show you 125 listings. I can narrow, based on my interview, I can narrow it down, to 3 or 4 or 5 businesses I show you at that first meeting. But then at the end of that meeting, you are ready to leave my office because nothing interested you. I've now lost you. You went out the door. So now I started to think, wait a minute. I'll bet some of the people that walk out that door and don't return to buy more the newer listings that we get that might be more appropriate for them. I started thinking, wait a minute. what about the franchises in this country? You know, that buyer might be interested in buying a brand new store, a brand new unit franchise. So I started poking around, and back in those days, I'm telling you right now, there wasn't one business broker on this planet in the early '80s that was representing the sale of brand new franchises. That was my idea. That's the Godfather in me. And so I started contacting franchisors to see who would deal with little old Nick Liuzza in little old Buffalo, New York, and pay me a commission if one of my buyers bought one of your brand new franchises. And I started signing people up. And all of a sudden, the word started spreading around the franchising industry to other franchisors as they started to talk among themselves, the franchise directors at conferences and so on, or franchise shows. And all of a sudden, now we've grown to the point where we represent about 300 franchises that will pay us a commission if one of our buyers buys one of their franchises, and including a master franchise territory, which is even a higher commission. So anyway, that led me into other areas, examining what we business brokers do. Earl refers to this as ancillary services. So I can sell you an existing business. I can sell you a brand new franchise. I can sell you a resale of a franchise that's already in existence. We can do franchise development work. So if you don't want to sell your business, as I'm speaking to you, prospecting to get listings, maybe you want to expand by franchising your company. We can do all the legal work. We can then, once the legal work is done, I refer to that affectionately as the 20 pounds of legal paperwork to be able to legally sell franchises. We can do all that for you for a fee, of course. And you can't beat our fee, by the way, with anybody else out there. Then when the paperwork is done, we can sell your franchises for you through our entire business brokers network all over the country, all over the world. So we become your go-to company. We can do, commercial loans. If you're looking for a commercial loan, we can put you in the right direction. We'll earn a couple of points on the loan. It's all ancillary income from doing what we do every day, dealing with business owners, trying to find out which of them want to sell, and then some of them obviously are then business sellers and business buyers. From those three categories, all of our other ancillary income sources come into play. And Earl does the business coaching. He's top notch, number one in the country. I can give you on and on about his rankings and accolades, his awards, and so on. No better business coach in the country. So anyway, by coming through us and finding out what our ancillary services are, you can make that 20% referral business. And Earl always makes the point, once you make that referral to us, that's your client with us forever. So maybe you send to somebody that needs they want to buy a business, they buy a business from us. And then, I don't know, 2 years later even, they come back and they want to start to franchise their company. That's your client. You get more referrals out of that because you made the one referral to us. That's your client forever.
This is perfect. Earl, anything to add on this?
Well, you did a great job on that. I think any time that we're working with businesses, what we do is we think about it as if we're in their shoes. I think our strength is that we put ourselves in their shoes by asking a number of questions so we truly understand what they need, what they want. And then we have access to all the different connections we need to get them what they want. Now we have a new one with Jeff, which is going to be fantastic. I know we're going to do a lot of things together, Jeff. That being said, so the opportunities for real estate agents in the next 5 years, if they will join forces with us, either as a referral source for business brokerage to us, or B, they decide they want to be a business broker. We've got training. You mentioned IBBA and all that. We also have our own personalized training that Nick has put together. Nobody knows business brokerage like Nick. So we've got all that training in place and put into various videos and things like that. If you want to be a business broker, I think we can be helpful. If you want to take advantage of working with businesses with our ancillary services, we got a ton of things we can do with those business owners. And if you're interested in just kind of filling that gap that you've had over the past several years, if you lost a couple $100,000 or $500,000, I know exactly some things you could do step by step to do it. And I've even got I think it's 6 sessions, 1 hour each, 6 hours of video that tells you how to do that as well. So, if you want to put something in the chat, we're happy to get information to anybody on this call, and excited about 2025 is going to be an amazing year. I think, James, you're right. Distressed opportunities are going to be everywhere. And I think that business brokerage is healthy and just getting healthier.
Yeah, and this is the thing with people on the audience. I'm glad to let them ask some questions, but this is the other thing. I was excited. Globally, there's some franchises with different opportunities that could be coming into the States. Everyone wants to bring their franchise globally into the US.
Yep.
So this is the huge opportunity where noodles, boba, this concept, that concept, right? It's all foreign, right? And the biggest one I would say that we always kind of think about is Starbucks. It was Schultz that was sat, I guess, in a French cafe saying, hey, we should do this in America. And now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So, the sky's the limit. So I'm going to let the audience ask a couple questions. Conlon, I see you had your hands raised first, and then Caesar. Go ahead, Conlon.
Okay, great. Hi, thank you for sharing. I have two questions. One is I go to a lot of investment conferences and met a lot of small businesses. So one of the business I come across, they have a beauty business, and they're in negotiation with investors. So do you guys support small businesses that are looking to raise money or find part owners, that type of situation? That's my first question. And then second is if on the other hand, if one of my family member is looking to be a part investor in a small business, what kind of support or business consulting you offer? Just want to see from those two lenses.
And they want to make the investment as a passive investor. They don't want to run the business. They're looking for a partner to do that. They'll invest the money and be a partner with the hands-on person, the relative.
Sorry, I didn't really hear the question.
I'm sorry. You said you had a relative that was looking to invest money in a business. So I was asking, they want to be a passive investor, not an active. They don't want to run the business themselves. They want somebody else as a partner that would be the hands-on person, day to day, run the business while they get their return on invested capital.
Right. They want to be more like a strategic investor type. They don't want to be too hands-on, but they can maybe introduce them to the right partnership, different resources. Yes.
Yeah, we do all the above. And the way we operate basically is we find out what the project's about, what they're looking for, and then we'll give them a quote on charging them some points, not up front, but we'll charge them some points on the fulfillment when we find the deal for them or the loan for them. We'll charge them some points.
Yeah. So Conlon, with Earl and Nick, kind of bring that offline because I know I want to get other questions, but that's a great question with cash flow and the business of this. So please connect Conlon with Earl, Nick, and Jeff, right? Just make sure you can see the right fit for your family. Caesar.
Can I just mention one thing about international buyers? So
Sure.
under SBA, under the Small Business Administration, it has to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident as an applicant. And the entity, the buying entity, has to be a U.S. A U.S. entity. However, it does allow foreign nationals to come in here. So the structure could be a foreign nationals coming in, say they have $1 million and they want to buy $1 million business. But if they partner up with somebody in the country that's a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, as long as that U.S. citizen or permanent resident owns at least 51% of the borrowing entity, now they can say double it up. Now you can buy a $2 million business. You get a $1 million SBA note. You have $1 million in cash. Now they're looking to buy a $2 or $2.5 million business instead of just trying to buy a $1 million business for cash. So that is another nice strategy for international buyers.
Thank you,
of course, Jeff, in that case, that $2 million business will cash flow even better than a $1 million business. And you leverage your money.
Yep.
Right.
Caesar, you have a question?
I have a question and a comment. My comment is in reference to Jeff's comment. I have done my fair share in selling businesses and franchises. There's so many of us that work with international markets. One of the easiest way to get into the country legally is to get an E2 visa for foreign nationals. that is very, very, very flexible. The US allows this for foreign investors, and so many commercial and residential agents representing foreign investors or foreign clients buying a home, and they want to establish their family here legally. It's so easy to buy a franchise or buying a business and qualify for the visa. E2 visa will get the visa with a business plan, and that way they can go to Jeff and apply for the loan. That is my comment. And my question is, I haven't heard elaborating on all the company, corporate employees that they want to leave the corporate chain, and they have the 401ks, and they can apply those 401ks for a loan for their own business. Anybody can elaborate on that? How to fund your business with a 401k?
Yeah, there's about, I'll call them three, four, maybe five legitimate companies out there that specialize in converting those retirement funds into being able to purchase a business without having to pay any penalties. You're not cashing in your retirement fund. You're kind of converting it in a legal way, so that there is no tax on distribution of that of the retirement funds. There's also a company that we work with that if a client has a heavy stock portfolio, for example, without selling any of the stock, and it's still in your name, they don't even take it as collateral. They will fund X amount of percentage of that stock portfolio. Maybe it's 70% of that stock portfolio to help you buy a business with that funded money. And then again, you don't create a tax situation by selling the stock and then having to use that money to go buy a business with it. This company that we work with will actually fund that deal for you, and obviously the stock acts as collateral on that loan, but you never have to create a sale for it.
So one of the things that Nick's alluding to is our whole process. We sit down with potential buyers and help them to find the money to buy the businesses, because part of our role is to find that buyer for our sellers or for our referred sellers. And so we have all kinds of different approaches we use to find that money. And a lot of times people think of just, typical ways to find money, and they're good. And many times they're the way to go. But there are other ways to get money as well, as was alluded to. And certainly taking money out of a 401k as a loan or what have you, or being able to use it as collateral in some ways, is one of those opportunities. And you want to take advantage of those things, especially when you're talking about, someone who might want to get something started for the first time.
Thank you.
And I'll just jump in. So the SBA has a guideline, right? So there's 5,000 banks across the country. We'll say there's 1,700 SBA lenders. So there's a lot of choices for institutional money. But these structures, these financing structures, are really can be flexible nowadays. So you can have a cash injection. You could get a cash out refinance against a piece of property. You could do a home equity line of credit against a home. You can do the 401k rollover. Nick and Earl have the contacts for that. You can have the SBA note, and you can also have investors, right? So if you're using a piece of debt, we'll call it an SBA loan. So we're just talking about this, the small, small and mid-sized business. You have an SBA loan that the 10 or 20% doesn't have to come out of your pocket. As long as you have say you have a C corporation, you give up 5 or 10% of the business if you want to do that. As long as they're under 20% ownership, they don't need to be a guarantor of the loan. So literally, you could and I hate to say this because it sounds unreal. You could buy a business with no money out of your pocket, because the money could come from the bank of an SBA note. You have some 401k rollover money, and you have 10% some investors, and now you're just putting the deal together.
That's right.
I want to give more time to Rodrigo, but see, this is the exciting thing. And Cesar, I'm glad you brought up the international visa, getting your citizenship. In addition, This is the structured finance where you do need to know, because I learned something new with my 401k and other things. I could pull money to buy a cash flow business. But Rodrigo, I want to give you time to ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much, Jim. First of all, my name is Rodrigo. Actually, I'm from Los Angeles area. So, majority of my clients are actually in healthcare business, and I do have, a lot of, foreign investors too. And I was wondering, do you guys do like nursing home, RCFP,
Yeah,
those
I
type of
have a
business?
multi-million-dollar buyer for skilled nursing home kinds of deals all over the country. And I also have, right now I have a deal I'm looking at for buyers in the neighborhood of 350 million for hospitals. So
Okay.
we're constantly, medical is a high percentage of what we end up interacting with. It's a good market for us.
Mm-hmm.
So we should talk offline, as James says.
Yes, yes. Because right now, actually, I have one client that would like to sell, her RCFE for like 5.5 million, but I have no idea on how to do it. So I said, I think it's a great opportunity.
Rodrigo, I'm based in Los Angeles.
Buyer.
Yeah, Los Angeles.
I'm
I shared my info on the chat.
Go ahead, Earl.
I've got a California buyer that owns probably 3,000 of those that would be willing to probably look at it. If you want to get in touch with me on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Rodrigo, connect with everyone, hear it, but this is what's so exciting. I think we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg. So we hope to do more of this, right? From the, I want to learn it, I want to be involved in it. How do I structure it? Because I have contacts. Maybe you don't understand this, but you can run it by bringing the parts together with the experts to teach you how to do it. And by having one piece of the connection or multiple pieces and a team of experts, you can now scale and run a business. And then it's up to you. Like we're all, I would say those that are real estate agents are not W-2s. You're an entrepreneur. So all of this is entrepreneurial, whether you buy a franchise, which is a set standard business in a box, right? And that's why franchise is a higher success, but you got to pay a percentage back. Or you take the risk, get all the knowledge, have a great concept, and you never know. Or living abroad, being abroad, finding a concept to bring into the US as a master territory, how to plug in. So there's so many ways. And we'll do some follow-ups on this because these just spark some great conversations. And it does free a lot of our agents that are 1099 to learn about, even for us, side hustling, creating another passive avenue line, and partner with other people. So I just want to thank Earl, Jeff, Nick for being on this. More to come, right? When I see this enthusiasm and people raising their hand for questions, we got to do more and we got to teach people how to do this to really be for the silver tsunami for 2025. And we're all excited. Elections, rates are coming down. Just get knowledge and get plugged in. So again, thank you again. Join us again for the Top Agent Nation, every commercial on every Wednesday to learn more about this, but you'll learn, we'll set up some more stuff and sign up for the backstage pass. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks,
a lot.
James.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
All right, Rodrigo, I'll
Thank
email
you.
you.
Please, yeah. Yeah, let's go.